All right, peace and much love. Zin Uru here. Welcome to the latest installment of Message from the Minista. This week's message from the Minista is hip hop, you don't stop. Hip hop, you don't stop. And what a week it's been. This is actually the second recording of Hip Hop, You Don't Stop. Those of you who follow weekly and follow Message from the Minista week in and week out, You'll notice that last week there was no message from the Minista, and I recorded a message called Hip Hop You Don't Stop last week, and it was fiery. One of my best yet. I was super, I had this feeling when it was over. I was just like, nailed it, man, just nailed it. And went to start editing the next day. Put the little file chip in there, put the little memory card inside the computer, downloaded the video. It was like an hour and 30 minutes long, and went to listen to the audio, and the audio was beyond repair. It was crackling, cutting in and out, distorting my voice. Sometimes when that happens, we'll get like a little hum or something, and I can use my digital audio workstation, my DAW, which I use, which actually, for those interested, when I mix music, I use Studio One by PreSonus. I use Studio One Artist by PreSonus, and I use plugins from Isotope. But anyway, so usually I'll put it in there if there's some kind of a hum, and nothing was working, man. I mean, it was destroyed, the audio was. And so, man, I felt a little tinge in the heart. I was like, oh man, that was one, I nailed it. And for those of you who are artists, especially MCs out there, it's like, I don't know if you've ever had this experience, especially early on for me. I would just like rip a verse, I would nail a verse, and then like the power would go out, or the computer, somebody trip over the computer plug, or the record didn't actually happen. And it's just a sinking feeling at first where you're like, oh, and you always got to remember and keep in mind when setbacks happen, when setbacks like that happen, that, hip hop, you don't stop. I'm a hip hopper. That wasn't going to stop me for nothing. I was too busy, and time was a constraint to re-record another one, given the amount of time it takes to edit, record, and the other things I had planned. So I just kept moving on with my life. Hip hop, you don't stop, and just prepared this week to just go and do it again. And so many times in life, I'm just saying this, we will, and sometimes it happens at our most excellent moment when we're like just performing excellence. And something just wacky happens, and that to me is just another moment to perform responsibility, another moment to perform overstanding, another moment to perform patience, and to be focused and stay the course. Stay focused on the course and stay focused on the outcome. And so I knew it was just like, it was nice to actually have a day where I didn't have no editing to do. There was a certain amount of peace, and I got caught up on a project. Instead of editing for a few hours that evening, I got time to work on a project that my car was literally taken apart in my garage. So it gave me the time to finish that project. All of this is to say is that when we're speaking about the hip hop lifestyle and what it means to be a hip hop, and we're going to look at a little bit deeper into the word hip hop tonight, and actually what it means in the gospel of hip hop from the first overstanding real hip hop. And we're also going to look at the word motivate, motivation, motivate, to be motivated. We're going to look at these two. We're going to read from the gospel of hip hop later and look at the definition of motivate. And what this is to say, and what the message is this week, is that when we say hip hop, you don't stop, we'll hear words like hustling. I'm on the hustle. I'm grinding. It's putting in that time and energy into our lives on a day in and day out basis, day to day. And a lot of the world, we've talked about this before, a lot of the world, when they see an individual, they're like, yeah, who are you? My name is John. I am a landscaper. What do you do, John? I landscape. What do you like to do for fun, John? I like to go to the movies. And it's very simple. There's somebody might have a hobby. They have the things they like to do. And then they define themselves by the job that they have. Somebody might say, oh, I'm a Buddhist or I'm a Christian, and then put that definition in there. Well, so you come to a hip hop, how do you explain this to somebody who doesn't understand? Like when we talk to one another, I've never met a hip hopper who has a problem with me if they say, oh yeah, what religion are you? Well, I say I'm hip hop. I say hip hop's my religion. It's, my philosophy, but I say it's my religion because going back to the ancient word for religion, take away all the connotations and all the misrepresentation of the word religion just means lifestyle. It's a lifestyle that includes activities that are done year in and year out. They would call them rituals, or they would call them holy days, it involves culture too. Religion involves culture like dance and music and speaking and art and philosophy. And certain fashion, and certain ways that we dress. So, going back to that term of religion, I say hip hop is a religion. And they'll say, well, what does that mean? What is hip hop as a religion? And one of the ways that the gospel of hip hop describes it is that, the same way that hip hop is able to take music from all over the world, we could take an African rhythm and then add a European horn section from classical music. Boom, boom, bap, boom, 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 bap, boom, 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 bap, boom, 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 bap, and then boom, 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 bap, boom, 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 bap, boom, 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 and they just blend together and form a new form of music that's really never been heard before in that way. And then the very next track from the very same artist can come in with like some heavy metal guitar, or they can go into a reggae rhythm. It's really quite unique because of all the different rhythms around the world that get mixed into hip hop, what's called hip hop music. And the same is for the spiritual lifestyle of the hip hopper, meaning that for somebody like myself, I grew up Christian, but when I was 13, I discovered Bruce Lee. And through Bruce Lee, I discovered the Tao. And through the Tao, I discovered Zen. And through Zen, discovered Buddhism. Through Buddhism, discovered Hinduism. And through Hinduism, discovered philosophy. And through philosophy, discovered New Thought. And through New Thought, discovered the New Age. And from New Age, discovered ancient Kemet religion. And it was effortless for me to look through these religions and see the truth and find this stream of truth. And growing up Christian, I grew up a Baptist Christian where it was very judgmental of anybody. If it was not, a Baptist Christianity, it was all false religion. Everything was all false. I used to teach this. And I was just like, wow, that's pretty wild, because I don't feel like that. I never felt like that inside. I actually had people question me when I was doing karate. That's where I was learning about Zen. And, it was just very interesting. They were saying, well, you meditate? Isn't that satanic? I was like, wow. No, it's not. And as I got older in yoga, it would always amaze me that certain individuals want to put themselves or us in a box and not see truth when truth is being delivered, especially by God. And I'm not anybody who subscribes to one religion and they find their faith in that and they find their fulfillment in that, and that is their pathway to God through their culture, through their heritage, through their heart, through their belief in their soul, more power to them. That is sacred and holy, right? But for those of us who say, the words of Jesus Christ is the ultimate. The Christ is the ultimate experience to begin having. But I found that this Christ energy in me is really cultivated when I sit and meditate. And when I sit and meditate, I'm studying the words of Buddha, who has thought about what the mind goes through when one sits in meditation, and talks about the demons and the devils that will attack oneself when they get and come closer to the light. And I'm like, yo, that's what's happening. Let me sit in meditation as I learn more about the Christ light within me. And then go in and discovering Hinduism, where, all of a sudden, Lord Shiva is the master yogi? Lord Shiva is a yogi. And this is where even goes further back than Buddhism. And so now I can sit here and do certain stretches, and my body starts moving with certain energies. And through those energies, I experience God more. I actually hear God more. I see God more when I'm out and about. Why? Because my mind's in a state of stillness. Hip hop, you don't stop. These things come to us in life. All of these different events and different circumstances in our life, and different philosophies and different teachings and different ideas, all of these things come to our life. And if we approach them and we judge them right off the bat, and I'm not saying like we should have discernment, but if we approach every new thought and new idea that comes to us and we judge it, we can cut ourselves off and limit and get a very tunnel vision, not focus, but tunnel vision, right? It's different. Having focus is the ability to see clearly and focus on whatever one is looking at and seeing. But focus also has a peripheral vision. Like I can focus in on the camera right here, like my eyes are focused right here. I'm literally looking at a little screen of myself, and I'm focused on that little screen. But then I can go wider and look with my peripheral vision. And although it may even look like I'm looking at you, I don't know how detailed this will come out with my eyes, but I'm literally looking at the whole room right now. And I can see, I'll show you where my hands stop, where I can't see my hands anymore. Right there. That's where I can't see my hands anymore if I look straight forward. So all of that space is peripheral vision. That's still focus. So focus doesn't mean just looking at one thing and staying focused on that one thing, although sometimes it does. It also means looking at the big picture and being focused on the bigger picture that's coming through. So when things like, a bad mic cord happen to us and we're like, oh man, I just nailed it. I gave a great performance. I gave a divine performance there, and nobody gets to see it. Nobody gets to witness it. Nobody's in? The ancestors are here. Those who were here with me last week in spirit got the message. You may not have heard it come from this voice speaking through Zin, but you heard it through the spiritual voice. Why? Because we're all here together in this room. And let's take a moment to acknowledge that too. I want to thank each and every one of you for being here week in and week out. And the love that I got this week by missing the message from the minister was special to me. It warmed my heart. My heart got warm. Just a lot of just brothers who were concerned, reaching out. Yo, Zin, everything good? Anything I could do to help? You need a mic cord, Zin? Yo, Zin, is everything okay? Yeah, everything good, brother. Thank you, though. I appreciate it. Yo, I got a new mic cord, but thank you for the offer itself felt good, And yo, Zin, that was great. Now it gives me a chance to catch up on a couple other ones. I was like, yo, word. All right. So when adversity hits us, it's always good to just keep it moving. Just keep moving along. And I'll tell you the reason, let's go back to this, let's take it back a couple steps. The reason that last week was Hip Hop You Don't Stop was because I hit a pace of like 2 weeks where I was like waking up, through my day, going to bed, waking up, just project after project, after a home life, after a home life, after, a business, and just so many things coming to where I wasn't even getting my normal peace. I mean, I was taking the time to meditate and pray and stretch and exercise. I do that. But that's part of the busyness. That's part of the hip hop you don't stop, right? But I didn't have any downtime where I just said, this feels good. It's quiet. I don't have anything I have to do right now. Or I wake up and go, what do I want to do today? Because those are great days. Some days I try to have certain days every once in a while where I just wake up and say, what do I want to work on today? I've got so many projects. What do I want to work on today? Not waking up, what do I got to work on today? Or what do I get to work on today? Because I got so much to do today that I have to get done, that others are depending on me to get done. So I got to go and do this, as opposed to waking up some days and being like, yo, what can I work on today? And it wasn't always, I mean, it was like this when I worked a full-time job. And when I was doing the grind, they call it 9 to 5, but even if you clock it in at 9 and clocking out at 5, there's usually a commute there and a commute home. So I used to call it the sun up to sundown, especially in the fall and winter months where it would get dark early and they mess with everybody's circadian rhythm with that stupid time change they do, daylight savings time. But that was because of the way I was thinking. As I was breaking free of that thinking and saying, yo, man, I'm a hip hopper. I'm a free living hip hopper. And at that time, I wasn't even a minister of the Temple of Hip Hop. I was just like, yo, I'm a representative of the Temple of Hip Hop. I'm a student of the Temple of Hip Hop, learning from the teacher, KRS-One. And when I would go to his house, you know, I mean, this is very early on in the apprenticeship, there was a certain pace. He said, you know, I keep a certain pace. Most people can't keep up with the movement. I move at a certain speed. And we talked about this in God's timing a few weeks ago, how, you know, the teacher's speed would be move real fast, then back up and move slow down. And then slow back, and then and slow back. And there was a rhythm to it, a movement in that timing, and coming from a world where like literally from the time I was born until 32, when I started my apprenticeship with him, from the very day I was born until the beginning of that apprenticeship, my rhythm was boom, 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 work, school, work, school, sleep, church, work, school, sleep, karate. It was like this it was just this rhythm. I didn't know that life had these other movements. And I even tried to break free by moving my family up to the mountains, right? But man, I had so much work to do up there because I wasn't thinking right yet. I didn't realize yet that there is a world and an earth here that we were created to experience that's beyond what the colonized system is offering us. And at first, if you're colonized like I was, if your mind and soul and spirit had been colonized like mine had been, you know, it's uncomfortable at first. You're like, yo, how do I create myself? How do I get up and motivate myself every day as a hip hopper? And if you got a job, you can do this too, because really, it's not about what you're doing. It's about the mindset first. I never had the mindset then that, yo, I'm an MC. I am hip hop. I just have a job right now to feed my family and pay the bills, but there's something bigger and greater for me in the future. I didn't think like that. It's like a stranger. It's like that person, when I think about my younger self, that's a stranger. Now, I studied a lot of books. I've always been cool. I've always had a lot of friends, done fun things, gone on adventures and things like that. But the thinking was very robotic. I didn't know, didn't have other ideas. And so when I was breaking free of that, when I was getting out of that and driving everybody in my family and all of my friends nuts, they couldn't understand why the stable bump, 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 bump that I used to be was no longer bump, 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 bump. No, I was over here. Then I was over here. Boom, 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 slowing my days down, then speeding it up and working in different time zones. It's like a whole different time, and reality started shifting and changing and all of that. And what I realized was that the more that I would work on my purpose, the better my outer environment would be. But it was a trip because everybody would say, yo, well, okay, so you're on your purpose now. How much does your purpose pay? Now remember, I was thinking about this. When we talked about purpose, the definition, when we looked at the American Heritage Dictionary definition of purpose, nowhere in there does it say that you will get paid for your purpose. That is a modern, colonized spiritual way of looking at things. I don't know how many times I've gone online, and I'm not dissing because these guys are living better lifestyles than I ever lived back in those days when I was in that system. But I'd be looking and be like, yo, they're always like, yo, find your purpose and then start making money off your purpose. And it's interesting because I was like, yo, man, but what if God is your purpose? How am I supposed to make money off of God? And I found out God will provide your needs for you. What if my purpose is to inspire and uplift and heal? And what if my purpose is to preserve hip hop? You're like, well, does that pay? How does that pay? Well, I don't know, but it's my purpose. And boy, you will recognize the difference between you and those in your environment who don't understand what you're going through when you go through it. And there are those who, once they try it, they get a taste of it, they stop. But if you hip hop, you don't stop. They weren't hip hop. Those who gave up on the MCing or the rap and were never able to pick it back up again. Somebody may be hearing this being like, I just stopped rapping. I didn't make it, whatever make it is. Go back to the tribal days when we would get around and gather around with our tribe and make music. That's making it. We're making the music. We're the singers of our ancestors and the drummers of our ancestors going, wow, I love drumming. I'm going to make a career out of this. No, it's just part of the lifestyle. It's part of the self-expression. It's not a job. Now, in modern days, there is jobs called DJs and MCs, and that is dope. Go for it. Get your money as an MC, as a DJ, as a b-boy, as a graffiti artist. Get your money. This is a hip-hop spiritual lifestyle, and I'm learning it from the guy whose philosophy is started the hip-hop. Well, hip-hop's always been spiritual, but when we're talking the hip-hop spiritual lifestyle being defined, there's only one man, and that's the teacher, KRS-One, as the one. And now I'm the student of the one, and I'm right there becoming a one myself. And I'm watching him and I'm learning from him and watching how not only does he not stop, it's the mind that doesn't stop. It would be funny because I'd be like, yo, man, the teacher knows how to chill. And other people would watch him and be like, oh, I'm just going to chill too. And they'd relax. But while they were relaxed, their whole mind was shut off. And what I saw from the teacher was like, yo, man, even if he's watching a movie or he's hanging out with the kids or we're going out to get a bite to eat, his mind's going. There's something on the mind. There's some kind of visualization, some kind of a creative process. You can look it up, The Power of Future, it's called. He's got an audio series called The Power of Future, where the mind is just visualizing the future and creating. And I watched that and I said, oh, that's part of hip hop. You don't stop. It's the consciousness. It's the mind. It's the awareness. It's just always this movement. Now remember, hip hop is intelligent movement. Hip is to know. It's a form of awareness. It's intelligent awareness. Hop is movement. It's not just a movement, it's a springing forth. It's an energetic movement. So when we hip and hop with this intelligence springing forth out of us, that's the thinking and the being. And it doesn't stop. Once you turn it on, once you click it on, Sometimes you got to change your environment. Sometimes you got to change your attitude. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of time. But once it clicks on and you click it on, the only one who could click it off is you. Nobody else and no outside circumstance can click it off but you. And this is really what we've all forgotten. Now, it may have been called other names throughout time and space, but I'm going to say it as hip hop for the hip hopper right now. Is that they may have tricked us and our ancestors and our parents' parents into turning that soul force off. Tick. And then we're just not hip to our hop and we just become, we're not hip to our hop, so we become we're not hip to our hop, so we become a robot. You're a robot if you ain't hip to your hop. See what I'm saying? So that was just instilled in us. We didn't know that we have this power within us just to go click. Boom, 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 ba-doom, boom, ba-boom, boom, 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 ba-doom, boom, 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 ba-da-ba-boom, boom. We don't know that we have this other time and space that we can create in and exist in. That's actually just our nature. It's just our human nature. Because that's what hip hop is. It's a human skill. It's human nature. It's just being a human. And you sit there and say, wow, now that I've got this turned on, the media can't turn it off. The government can't turn it off. Technology cannot turn it off. Once you know how to turn it on, nobody can turn it off. Nobody. Why? Because the switch is inside of you and nobody can enter into you. So once you turn it on, the hip hop, you don't stop. You start writing books, you start thinking about things, philosophizing all the time, start getting really creative, and you don't just want to do and be one thing. You don't want to just be John the landscaper, you know? You want to be, I'm a graffiti artist, I'm a MC, I'm a producer, I'm an author, I'm a minister, I'm a speaker, I'm a teacher, I'm a friend. I'm a yogi. I'm a Tai Chi. I'm a martial artist. And all of it is just I am. It's all of these things. I'm a scholar. I'm a hip hop scholar. And wow, does the world get a whole lot, well, not even the world. The world gets more interesting, but more importantly, Earth gets more interesting. Life itself becomes way more interesting, and most people don't want interesting. They want boring. They want plain. There's a term floating around, right, for modern humans, those who just keep following the media narrative and believing what the government propaganda through the media is. Like, there's actually people out there that don't realize that the media is a branch of the government. They really think that the media is some kind of outside source and the government's over here. No, the government and the media is the same organization. And the pharmaceutical industry, the government and the media is the same organization. And Hollywood and the media and the government and the pharmaceutical is the same organization. And you could throw into that same organization is the university system, same thing. They're the government, it's all the same organization. It's all the colonized organization, right? And wow, man. You see that for what it is, and then you see earth life for what it is. You're like, yo, I want more of this earth life. I want to experience more God. I want to experience more of my God nature. I want to, what am I capable of now? What can I accomplish now? Hip-hopia, hip-hop city, a hip-hop ministry, becoming an artist. What is it that you can accomplish when you don't have any limits that you place on yourself? And this isn't that colonizer's way of you could be anything you want to be. You could do anything you want to do as long as it fits in our box. A man can give birth now in that, just insanity. But here we are in hip-hop as natural human beings. We're coming through here. We're like, we got the 9 elements. We got the last of the human skills. We get along. Hip-hoppers are like what the United Nations should have been and could have been all along. This man figured it out. This man figured it out. This man figured it out. That while all these nations are at the United Nations arguing and bickering, creating and colonizing and controlling and doing all of that, we hip-hoppers are way beyond that, way more mature. We may not even get along all the time, but we're not going to war with one another. We're not plotting and scheming like, oh, let's get together and take all those people out. Let's control all of them. No, we want to live our life, and we want to live our life to the fullest. So imagine that. Imagine, like, a whole city of people who wake up and are living their purpose. And that purpose sustains them. Because remember, some people's purpose is food cultivation. Some people's purpose is structuring and cleansing and keeping the water system pure and clean. Some people's purpose is healing, hands-on healing, energetic healing. Some people's purpose is music and to create music for others to hear. Some people's purpose is to meditate and be at peace, bringing a sense of calm to the whole city. And it might sound like a utopia, but it's not, because it requires work. And people don't want to put in the work to turn it on, and then hip hop, you don't stop. Because when you stop, you're not being hip to your hop. You're not intelligently moving forward. And I've seen so many hip hoppers, so many pick it up and stop. And then when they pick it up again, a year later, 2 years later, they're still in the same place they were 2 years ago as MCs. And sometimes you got to play catch up, like you got to get back in shape before you can grow. Do you see a tree stop growing? They die. When you stop, it's death. And even that is debatable, because a tree, it may stop growing, but it doesn't stop moving. It starts breaking down, but that breaking down is a movement too. So for a human to stop their nature is anti-nature. It goes against everything that nature is about. It goes against all of creation. It's a sin. Oh, I was going to say a minute ago, NPC, they're called NPC. And I guess in the video game world, I don't play video games, but I've played it, I've seen them enough to know that they're called non-player characters. NPC, non-player characters. And what is a non-player character? It's like if you're in one of those games, they're extras. In a movie, they're extras. They're not actors, they're just extras. And I heard this guy talking about that, and he put that out there, and then I guess people have been calling those who are just listening to CNN and buying all their jargon and BS, hook, line, and sinker, calling those people NPCs, and they're getting upset. And I thought it was kind of funny, because I've always had this idea since I've been little. I always looked at everybody like, is everybody real? Is everybody real? They're real, but there's a lot of NPC. Like, who's filling up all these stadiums all over the world? Who's living in all of these cities all over the world? How many of us are actually really alive, consciously aware, awake to our soul and our spirit, and the magnitude of the responsibility that comes with that? See, because a non-player character will just get up, do the thing, and die. Wake, be born, go through the system, do their part, and die. Never realize they're going to come to themselves. And I wonder, what is that? What does that mean? Now, I'm not taking anybody's humanity away. This is not like the concept that they have of, well, I don't even want to call out any religions, but there's certain religions where they call those people less than, and so they're allowed to enslave those people and do all that. No, we don't do that. They're part of nature too. We are in harmony with nature. And we don't know enough. Do they have a soul in them that's latent? Does it just need to be clicked on too? We don't know the difference. So maybe a NPC, a non-playing character, could actually become a hero or part of the game itself when something's turned on or when something's activated. But watch out for those NPCs too in your life, because they'll be the ones who say, don't think like that. What do you mean you're following your purpose now? What do you mean you are a hip hop? What do you mean? That doesn't fit in my robotic little box. And then they'll try and dish you, discourage you. And you gotta not stop. You gotta keep pushing forward and making it happen through willpower. You gotta do it. There's no other way through it but to do it. And that's what it means, hip hop. You don't stop. You wake up. You got ideas. Sometimes you're learning. Sometimes the ideas don't work out, but you learn a lesson from the ideas that don't work out. Mistakes into wisdom, right? But then it gets to where all of a sudden, like, these beautiful Temple of Hip Hop calendars appear, and the graffiti art appears, and the Tree of Life appears, and a Gospel of Hip Hop appears. And it doesn't just appear. We didn't just sit there and visualize this book all day, and then all of a sudden we had a book. No. The teacher spent countless hours writing the book. There's work involved. And that's what part of the Don't Stop is. It's a requirement of work. You got to put in the work. You've got to understand that, like, you want to be a dope MC, you got to work on your rhymes, you got to work on your flow, you got to work on your cadence, you got to work on your voice, you got to work on your breath control. And that's just the beginning. You've got to evolve, you got to get better with time. You'll notice as the longer you rap and you don't stop rapping, like you can start doing things with your voice that you couldn't do even a couple years ago. You start manipulating your voice in all these different ways, and you can come up with characters and be like, time and time again, as I pick up the pen. And all of a sudden you get these inflections and these tones, and it's amazing. Because why? You don't stop. Oh, I'm not making any money at this, I should stop. That means you don't love it. If you're about the money, you don't love it. It's got to be about the love first. If you don't love hip hop, you will not succeed at hip hop. And so many people, I was just thinking too, like, how often do we hear people give hip hop itself the credit for where they are? And I'm talking mainstream hip hop artists, rappers, producers, DJs. How often do you hear them say, and maybe they'll say it after this gets put out there, I just want to take a moment to thank hip hop. I wouldn't be here tonight if it wasn't for hip hop. They'll thank their grandma, they'll thank God, and of course God and grandma are there. They're part of that. But how often do people who take from hip hop not give back to hip hop? And to me, that's a form of stopping. To really be hip to one's hop, you want to preserve that which is you. So I say, I am hip hop. I need to preserve hip hop. And how do I preserve hip hop? By doing it non-stop. Talking about it, visualizing it, creating it, preserving it, appreciating it. Day in and day out. No matter what the circumstances may look like. You might feel like crap inside. You still need to work on your rhymes. You will feel better. Your life could be falling apart. You still need to work on your rhymes. It'll help get your life that's fallen apart back in order again. You see, these elements, there's a mystery that nobody's talking about, and I don't know if they don't understand it because they haven't gone through it because they're doing it as a job or as a career. But I've realized that, like me, I'm 9 albums deep. 10. I just finished my 10th album. I'm working on number 11. And 12. And 13. Wow. And I'm like, I never stop year in and year out. I record every single year. May not release an album year in and year out, but I release albums after album after album because I don't stop. But do I get paid for it? I may be made off all those albums combined. I've maybe made $500. Maybe. It's not about the money. It's about the expression. Because when I hear my rhymes, when I listen to my old albums, I can time travel back in time, know exactly where I was when I recorded it, why I wrote it, where I was when I wrote it, and I can feel myself in that time and space. And I listen to it and I'm like, this is like a journal through time and space of music. And this empowers me in everything else that I'm doing. And it empowers others. You never know what's going to happen with your music in the future. But if you stop, you will never know. I could leave this world and then have a hit record. And I'll be in heaven just like, oh, wow. That's the song everybody wanted to hear. Now I see why I recorded it. I see why I didn't stop. Can you imagine if this man stopped? And I'm not even comparing myself to this man here. Can you imagine if this man stopped? If after the first time he got arrested, remember he got arrested, 17 times? After the first time Martin Luther King got arrested and all his families and friends are like, Martin, you can't be going to jail. You got kids. This isn't what it's about. I'm sure there was parts where he's just like, I probably should just go back and keep preaching at the church and avoid jail. Can you imagine if the king would have stopped? Where would we be now? Where would we be now if Bruce Lee after he lost his first fight or whatever, he quit? What if Jesus quit? Where would we be? What if hip-hop itself decided to quit back in 85, 86 when everybody was saying rap is just a fad? What if everybody said, you know what, mainstream, you're right, rap is just a fad, we ain't worth shit, let's get jobs and quit and stop? Where would we be right now? Where would the world be right now for real? You cannot stop your self-creation. You cannot stop your hip and your hop. It's always moving. Sometimes you wake up with a great idea and you got to write it down. Sometimes you're doing hip-hop in your dreams. Whatever it is, you don't stop. Do you stop breathing? Pop, 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 in, out, H-I-N-P. H-I is in, P. H-O is out, ha, P, hop. You can't stop breathing. You can't stop hip-hopping, hip-hopper. What's your purpose? Do you know yourself? Do you know yourself to just keep it turned on all the time? Now, I'm going to say this too. I got trained by the greatest of all time. But this, got access to this. We didn't have this. So I had to go on tour and get trained in things, and that was great. And that's where I am, who I am today, and I stand proud of that. But you got all that knowledge and wisdom here in a book that you could pick up and read. And this book will open you up to all other kinds of books and all other kinds of knowledge and all other kinds of thinking. This is just the first book of its kind, the foundation. What if the teacher, when he was writing the chapters and he said, I am hip hop. And everybody said, no, you're not. The community, remember, I am hip hop. Even up to 2005 when I started my journey with the Temple of Hip Hop and we were touring, I would have to defend the philosophy, just the statement, I am hip hop. People will come up to us after shows and say, that was a great show, but I disagree saying I am hip hop. I disagree that hip hop's a culture. People dress like B-boys and B-girls, MCs, somebody just raps, say hip hop ain't a culture, you're foolish. Can you imagine if when the teacher, or even myself, when we heard that, we said, oh, you know what, you're right. Hip hop's not worth preserving. It's not even worth it to write a gospel of hip hop. Why am I even out here doing any of this? You're right, everybody, you're right. Let me just stop. Where would you be? Where would any of us be right now? You know, for real. And think about the impact that you can make on your world by not stopping, by hipping and hopping and not stopping, by being intelligent movement, by living your purpose and finding and discovering that purpose and being that purpose. Imagine what the effect will be on the rest of the world. And if you stop right now because your environment, or it's gotten difficult, it's too hard. Pressure creates diamonds. Pressure creates gems. Pressure creates perfection. These perfect crystalline structures were made through pressure. These are perfect crystalline structure. Perfection. Made through pressure. They didn't stop. They kept growing. These are still growing, by the way. You know that, right? They're still growing. This is a living being that's still growing. Are you giving into the pressure? Are you going to stop your growth to please a world because the pressure is too much? You won't reach your perfection. You won't reach your crystalline expression of perfection. You'll be ordinary, average. Your soul won't be fulfilled. It may never even get turned on. And not you. I'm saying those who turn it off. Those who do that. But you should know that it's serious like that. I've seen it. I've seen people stop, turn it off, and they're stuck. 10 years ago, their life had momentum. They stopped where they were at, said, I'm getting off right here, and more power to them. They're living a good life. I'm not dissing. But what I'm saying is that their skill set, who they were 10 years ago, is basically who they are with a few little bit of growth, because growth is inevitable. But if I could be right here, and 10 years ago, my 38-year-old self was standing right here, you'd see a wild man standing next to me, full of ideas, but haven't mastered most of them. Now, I was doing a lot of work, and I was hip to my hop 10 years ago, but I was wilding out 10 years ago at 38, learning all this new knowledge, getting to go through all these experiences. It felt like I was just unleashed on the earth, you know? And had I quit when I was in my darkest days, I would rather not even exist than to have quit. And that time, it goes by fast. It's fast, man. It's fast. That pressure, it compresses time. That pressure compresses time. And so that boom, boom, bap, boom, 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 bap. Oh, boom, boom, boom. And next thing you know, it's 20 years later. Now, would you rather 20 years from now say, I just put in 20 years of solid work on my purpose. I just put 20 years straight in all these things because I didn't stop? Or would you rather be looking back 20 years ago? 20 years ago I gave up and stopped, and I wish I didn't. That's some serious motivation, because life is like, it's over quick. It just keeps getting faster and faster the older you get. 48. 40 great. I'm 40 great. I'll be 49 this year. 40 fine. I ain't stopping for nothing. I can see my 70-year-old self is vibrant, more vibrant than I am now. More healthy than I am now. More loving, aware, wealthy, caring than I am now. My heart's even warmer 20 years from now, 30 years from now. I stand up stronger 30 years from now. Why? Because I know I ain't going to stop. I can't stop. Why can't I stop? Because I refuse to turn it off. And nobody and no force and no energy can turn it off. What God has joined together, let no man separate. No force in the universe, can stop you from being hip to your hop. Nothing. No demon, no devil, no colonizer, no liar, no narcissist, no cheat, no nothing can stop you. No injury can stop you. You turn that on and you keep that fire lit. You keep that light shining. You learn the techniques of what it means to keep your light shining. How to keep it safe, how to keep it protected, how to express it. How to be bold with it, when to chill out. You learn the dynamics of life, the movements of life itself, and the nature of life itself. This is why we were created. This is why God gave us the breath of life. I am the breath of life. I put a song down. I didn't put it down when we did Breath of Life. Was it last message for the minister or one or two ago? We did was called The Breath of Life. And I have a song called The Breath of Life. I'll put the link down below. Maybe you'll listen to it after after we watch this. But that song was really fun because it was just really late one night. I was thinking about breath. I was breathing. And a beat came on. I just heard the beat and I just heard the song. It was a simple song. It's only a couple minutes long. And I just was like, I just wrote out the lyrics, felt into it, and recorded it. One of those songs that I got inspired, and 2 hours later it was done. Lyrics, recording, everything. And, mixing and mastering, that takes a little more. I would revisit it just to fine-tune things, but it was basically done in 2 hours, right? And they don't all work like that, but when you don't stop and you start getting better and better at what you do, there's less resistance to what you do. So you're able to do more with your gifts, with your talents, with those things that you've honed. There's less resistance to it. Peace. I see you, man. Wow, one big spirit just walked in the room. Wow. Thank you. Wow. Feel that peace that beating just brought in. Wow. Amazing. We're touching on some deep truth here. The acknowledgement of this giant being just walking into this room. Man. And the peace of heart. Just tune into that right now. Tune into your heart right now. What happens when that thing stops beating? That intelligent movement, that heart is intelligently pumping blood through every part of the body, and it is literally hopping in our chest. Our heart is hip hop. What happens when your heart stops? What happens when the breath stops? You stop being. Yeah, you move on to another form of being, but you stop this form of being in this world. And one of the key words is motivation. So we're going to read from the American Heritage Dictionary, 3rd edition tonight, is motivation. And there's multitudes of ways to motivate ourselves and keep ourselves motivated. Fear is not the answer, but fear can be a great motivation. I was afraid that I wasn't ever going to get my albums done, so it motivated me to work hard on those early ones. I was afraid that hip-hop would never be preserved, so that fear motivated me hard to work on the Temple of Hip-Hop and where we're at now with Hip-Hop Appreciation Week. We used Hip-Hop Appreciation Week, and consciously, I remember the teacher saying, he's like, yo, Zin. I remember my first Hip Hop Appreciation Week officially as the Temple of Hip Hop in 2005. And he's like, yo, Zin, keep this in mind, that we need to inspire our community, hip hop, to think of itself as a community. That's what we're using. That's what Hip Hop Appreciation Week is for. That's the motivation. And it was incredible to watch the growth of it, because each year we would hit resistance and we wouldn't stop. Each year we put out a new subject and we'd hit this resistance until finally we just broke through and there's no more resistance. Hip Hop Appreciation Week has a life of its own. Of course, the Temple of Hip Hop, we champion it, we put it forward, we put it out there. But I know how much hard work I personally put in to make sure that in 2022, this year, it will be the biggest, greatest Hip Hop Appreciation Week everywhere, because it's being celebrated and looked at all around Earth this year. And last year, 2021, was the biggest one. And 2020 before that, even though it was so-called lockdown, it was huge. Because it's got a life of its own now. It's part of the consciousness of the community. It's part of the awareness of the community. It motivates people to appreciate hip hop, appreciate themselves. But that motivation in the early days was like, can we really just keep using our words, keep using our belief, keep using our inspiration and our organizational skills to inspire an entire community all over the earth to think of itself as hip hop and see itself as a culture and a community? There's 20-year-olds right now who probably can't even believe how hard it was back then. You don't even know what we were up against. Daily, articles being written about us. I remember my very first, what city was it in? My very first time I ever publicly spoke about hip hop. I was probably 5-6 weeks into my apprenticeship. And the teacher, as he often does, just throws you into the deep end of the pool and says, go swim. If you get in any trouble, I'll save you. It gave me, we had a gathering, we had a seminar, and he's like, Zin, I want you to go do the opening, go warm him up for 10 or 15 minutes, talk about your experience as the Temple of Hip Hop, talk about hip hop. So I'm up there talking, right? I'm just blah, 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 hip and hopping, talking. And where our philosophy was at back then, and talking about that, we are hip hop, we are a nation, we are a culture, the 9 elements, breaking MC and graffiti, our DJ and beatboxing, street fashion, street language, street knowledge, street entrepreneurialism, like going through all that speech. And ladies and gentlemen, please give a round of applause for our teacher, KRS-One, and then he comes out and speaks, right? My very, very first public speaking, and on behalf of hip hop. And the very next day, we're traveling, and somebody sends me a article written by somebody from a local magazine who was at the event, and they were making fun of us. They were specifically making fun of me for being white, is calling me some kind of Scientologist or something like that, saying I was a religious nut, asking if the Temple of Hip Hop came with decoder rings in our Cracker Jack box. Just dissing. And I was like, yo, that's the motivation right there, because that person is obviously sent here to motivate me to stay on my path, because I don't stop for foolishness. I don't listen to the ignorance of the world. See, so what was a diss only worked to empower me. I have no idea who that person is, where that person is now, and what they think. I wish nothing but goodwill towards every man and woman on earth. However, that person was ignorant at that moment, saying something ignorant, and as a woman too. She was so ignorant and so full of herself and so condescending and so arrogant to write such an article when we're going out there stopping the violence in our communities. And that's going to happen to anybody. And while we read motivation, use the adversity as a motivator. Use the haters as a motivator. The hater is a motivator. If you know the alchemy and you know the physics and the metaphysics, the hater is the ultimate motivator. Oh, I'm going to prove you wrong. Yo, I am the dopest MC who ever walked the earth. Yo, I am so fresh. I am so hip-hop. I am clearly everything you are not. Yo, use that motivation, my nobility. Doesn't matter how it comes, use it as motivation. And you got to motivate yourself. I was writing lyrics, I would use that as a motivation. Oh man, I ain't really feeling like working on my lyrics right now. You know, there's a good movie on right now. I need to, oh man, I could just have a couple beers, watch a couple movies and go to sleep. Or I could work on my rhymes right now. What do I need to do to work on my rhymes right now? What's the motivation now for me to work on my rhymes? Oh man. Remember that ignorant woman said to me, I'm going to talk about how dope I am and how fresh I am and how real hip hop is. Oh, word, my nobility. It gets real like that. Put it up here on the screen. Motivate. This is from the American Heritage Dictionary, 3rd edition. It's not a lot of definitions here, but the root word of motivate is motive. So we'll see that because motive is just, we're going to do motivate, motivational. We're going to do motivate, motivation, and motive. And you can see here, it's got one that says motivational research. And this is something I want to point out about the system and the colonizer, but I don't want to focus on it. But I do want to keep that motivational research in here just to see. It shows you, they're telling on themselves. Literally, I discovered this reading, Motivate, or when I was doing the research on this for last week's lesson, which is now this week's lesson. I was like, wow, they're just telling on themselves right here. They're literally telling you how they manipulate people through mind control, how they motivate people towards their self-destruction, how they motivate people to go to fight their foolish wars, how they motivate people to slave their life away for minimum wage and a little crumbs off of the table. They show you how people motivate themselves towards hurting themselves and hurting others and judging others and being colonized. But that same motivation, when used in the right direction, my nobility, oh, it will set you free. The truth shall set you free. That truth is the greatest motivator there could be. Embrace that truth. Motivate. To provide with an incentive to move to action. Impel. That's an incentive. What's my incentive for this? Well, that's an interesting one. The incentive is good. I'm going to work on my rhymes tonight because the incentive is when I work on it tonight, I'm going to be a better rhymer tomorrow. My voice is going to sound better tomorrow. I'm going to work on my book tonight because, the incentive is to finish this book and unleash it on the public. The motivation to be a better father tomorrow. I want to be a better father. I wasn't the best father today. Let me use my failure, my so-called failure, turn that mistake into wisdom. I'll take that failure and turn it into motivation. Let me take my mistakes and use them to motivate me. You see how it works? Motivation, the act or process of motivating. They're so funny. It's so funny. They use their definition. They use the same word to describe itself. It's hilarious. The state of being motivated. Something that motivates. An inducement or incentive. Inducement. I like that word right there because what you use the motivation for is to induce a feeling inside of yourself that propels you forward. Yo, man, I need to exercise. I really need to work out today. My muscles, I need to pump that iron tonight. I need to work out. I need to give myself a good, solid workout. I need to break a sweat. And what's going to motivate me, what's the incentive is I'm going to feel better after it's done. And then what that does is that induces That motivation induces like the chemical reaction, the mental reaction, the inspiration to go and do it, to be it. Just real quick here. Motivational research. This is every corporation, media, colonizer on the earth. This is Google. This is Facebook. This is Instagram. This is Windows. This is all of them. This is all of them. Watch what they're doing right here. Systematic analysis of the motives behind consumer decisions. Now watch this. Used especially by advertisers and marketers to assess attitudes towards products and services, also called motivational research. They want to find out what the color red motivates people to think sexually. So they're going to put that in an ad to motivate you sexually to go buy a chicken sandwich. Oh, they know what heartstrings to pull on the nightly news, what to say on the nightly news to make people think that the world is falling apart and make people surrender more of their freedoms to us. Oh, they use that motivational research to manipulate everybody. And they motivate me. They motivate me towards hip-hop. Yeah, they motivate us. Their failed colonizer system, their inferior colonizer system, inferior in every way to hip-hop. Oh, use their inferiority as a motivation for us to succeed and create something great out of the ashes and the rubble that they've left behind in their drunken stupor. Motive. Now, this is the root word of motivate. Now, these right here, this is the most important to know of these definitions, because this is the things to create, and you can create this motivation in yourself. You can motivate yourself. You can create the feeling of motivation. You have to research yourself. You have to check your attitudes. You have to assess yourself. An emotion, desire, physiological need, or similar impulse that acts as an incitement to action. This is where I say, even if you got to use fear to motivate you into action, use that fear as motivation into action. God does it all the time. God uses false fears, false evidence appearing real, fear, as a motivation to get people off of their asses to do something. But when you don't need fear to motivate you, all of a sudden love, truth, freedom, hip-hop, God, that becomes the motivation. Health, love, awareness, and wealth, that becomes the motivation. But if it motivates you and you know what it's going to motivate you towards, I'm afraid of getting old and weak. I'm going to work out today, right? But it could be, I'm going to use the motivation. I just love myself and I love the way I feel when I'm healthy. I'm going to work out today. Definition number 2. This is hip-hop right here. A motif in art, literature, or music. That's hip-hop, is the motif. Motif is hip-hop. What is the motivation? Hip-hop is the motivation. Hip-hop culture itself is the motivation. Hip-hop consciousness itself is the motivation. Hear me, my nobility. Hip-hop is the motivation. It's the motif. It's the motive behind why we do what we do. Motive as an adjective, causing or able to cause motion. Causing or able to cause motion. Oh yeah, my nobility, the juices get flowing. Causing or able to cause motion. Abel, there's our dude Abel again. That's my dude Abel. Yo, Abel is the man. Gots to know more about that. Causing or able to cause motion. Are you able to cause motion in your life? Is your intelligence, your hip, your awareness, is it able to cause movement, motion, hop? Is your hip able to cause hop? That's the motive. That's the motive power. Impelling to action, definition number 2. Impelling to action. Same thing. It's pushing you towards action. It's inspiring you towards action. It's energizing you towards action. Oh, Definition number 3, of or constituting an incitement to action. Once again, they're just saying the same thing in different ways. Making it an action, becoming active in your life. Perform action is motivation. We're not reading from Perform Action this week, but you may want to take the time to study Perform Action this week for a deeper understanding on how to motivate yourself. To motivate, Middle English, motif, motive, from Old French, motif, from late Latin, motivus, of motion, from Latin, modus, past participle of movere, to move. It's motion and movement. That's the motivation. It's motion. It's movement. Why did I choose that word? I didn't want to choose don't or stop as the word this week. Hip hop, you don't stop. You have to be motivated to not stop. Well, my purpose motivates me. My God motivates me. Hip hop motivates me. Bruce Lee motivates me. I was going to say Bob Marley motivates me. Still don't have his picture up yet. Need to get it. Martin Luther King motivates me. Oh boy, I know the Christ motivates me. The teacher motivates me. I motivate me because why? All of that's internal. All that's from within. Like I said in the beginning, you get it turned on. Nobody can turn it off but you. Once you turn it on, you ain't going to want to turn it off. Once you discover the well, what, you're going to go fill it back in? Oh man, I've been so thirsty my whole life. I've needed water. My village, my personal village has needed water. I just dug a well. I've got water in my well. I'm just going to fill it in and stop. No, once you got that well, oh, you appreciate that well. You love that well. You care for that well. You preserve that well. You nurture that well. You keep that well clean. Why? Because it's growing food. It's giving you water. It's cleaning your body. That's how important motivation is. And once it's turned on, like I said, you're not going to plug up a well that's giving life to you. Once you turn on that wellspring within you, you're never going to want to turn it off. Why? Because you love it. It's life-giving. It's a life giver. That intelligent movement is life-giving. Inspiration giving. It's a motivator. And when you really start seeing the bigger picture that we're the return of an ancient people, like we're going to read from the Gospel of Hip Hop tonight, when you really get that motive that like we're the continuation of a movement that has never stopped, hip hop, you don't stop, means you're participating in something that's never stopped and never will. It's eternal motion. Eternal motion forever. Forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever. This whole thing will be the intelligent movement of the universe itself will be moving. And you will be moving with it. For those with eyes to see, ears to hear, and the motivation to be hip hop. And the faith. Faith is oh wow. Talk about the motive. Talk about the motivator. Faith. Faith is the greatest motivator of all time. Faith in God. Oh man, my days seem dark. Oh man, part of me just wants to give up. Oh man, but you know what? I can't give up because God is real. God is inside of me. God is motivating me forward. And what is that? I have faith in God. And I will rise up. Wow, that word needed to come out. Oh boy. Excuse my cough, but wow. I usually edit those out, but my eyes are watering. That felt good to say that word right there. That was like some old idea, something just clogged in the throat. They had to go out. Dislodge some energy. Ooh, some old energy just got dislodged there. What motivates you, my nobility? What motivates you? You know, before you go to bed tonight, before you do your meditation or your prayer, ask yourself, before you go to work today, wherever it is you're doing today, what motivates me to do what I do? And it's very interesting because you can get to what's motivating me to go to this job, or what's motivating me to spend all this money on things I don't need? What can I live without? What's motivating me to have so much outer stuff while my inner self is not really fulfilled? What's motivating me? What's motivating me to go to this job today? Well, I got my kids to feed. That's what's motivating me. Word up. That's noble. Take care of your family. That's a great my family is a great motivator. Hip hop, you don't stop. You can find so much motivation, so much faith. Why? Because it's everywhere. Hip hop is everywhere. You don't got to go looking for a way over there or over there or across that sea or over that landmass or up where that mountain. You don't got to look for hip hop anywhere. You just got to find it and be it yourself where you're at. Grow where you are planted. An old lesson we did about a year ago. Grow where you are planted. Yeah, go out and see the world. It's going to be great. But that's not where it's at. It's with you right now. Let that be the motivation. Let your soul force be the motivation. Let this word be the motivation from the Gospel of Hip Hop. What page are we on? We're in the first overstanding. Page 76. We'll pop it up here on the screen. Just going to read about a page and a half here, or 2 pages maybe. You see this right here. This is page 76 in the first overstanding, Real Hip Hop, in the Gospel of Hip Hop, presented by the teacher, KRS-One, to the Temple of Hip Hop. And we're going to just start here on paragraph 86. And this is the most incredible motivation. I wanted to start here on 86 because this motivation in this very first sentence, really first couple sentences, but this very first sentence, this to me just see it, be it, and know it. We hip hoppers are the genetic return of an ancient people. For it is known by all truth. Let's make a moment here though. We are the genetic return of an ancient people. Meditate on that. Contemplate that. Look at that philosophy. You want to talk about empowering. We hip hoppers are the genetic return of an ancient people. For it is known by all true seekers of truth that nature produces knowledge through symbolism, comparison, and metaphor. It appears that we, hip hoppers, are responsible for the gathering of symbolic information on this planet and then teaching it to others through art for guidance and the relief of human suffering. Underline that, highlight that, write that. It appears that we hip hoppers are responsible for the gathering of symbolic information on this planet and then teaching it to others through art for guidance and the relief of human suffering. That is purpose right there. That is our purpose as hip hoppers. By oppressing hip hoppers, you stagnate the gathering and distribution of symbolic knowledge and thus stagnate the progress of human understanding. Now, just know this, we're kind of jumping in the middle of it here, but you should know what hip and hop means. And we just went through the etymology of hip and hop in the Gospel of Hip Hop to get to this point. But this is important. Finally, within the etymology of hip hop, we come to the hip hoppa, or hip hoppa. That's you, my nobility. Looking at the old Icelandic term hoppa, meaning to spring upward, it becomes obvious that the way in which the Temple of Hip Hop describes and spells hip hoppa is influenced by the terms hip and hoppa. The term hip, meaning keenly aware of what is new and in style, and hoppa, meaning to spring upward or to hop, reveals the hip hoppa, as the actual intelligence that is springing forward. Look at that. It reveals that you, the hip hoppa, are the actual intelligence. You're the actual intelligence. I'm the actual intelligence. We are the actual intelligence that is springing forward. The hip hoppa can also be said to be a modernized life dancer, keenly aware of what is new and in style, a conscious mover, or one who moves with awareness. And know this. What we have done in our early days as hip hoppas, how we have defined ourselves and how we have expressed ourselves in the material world was done spontaneously, spiritually. We were calling ourselves hip hoppas and hip hoppas long before the definitions, and interpretations of this gospel. My nobility, that is so important to know. This is why we tune into our natural self, because we will begin doing things that we're not even aware of why we're doing it at times. We're moving intelligently, and when we look back, we go, that's why I did that. That's why I was calling myself that. That's why, oh, wow, amazing. It happens all the time. Like when I called myself Zin Uru. Well, we'll get to that story in a minute. And know this, what we have done in our early days as hip-hoppers, how we have defined ourselves and how we have expressed ourselves in the material world was done spontaneously, spiritually. We were calling ourselves hip-hoppers and hip-hoppers long before the definitions, and interpretations of this gospel. It is truly amazing to discover our real nature and characters as hip-hoppers, even the term hip-hopper already existing within the very structure of the English language itself as us. Meditate upon this fact. Meditate upon that. We were calling ourselves this before we even defined what it was. We were calling ourselves hip-hoppers, and then the teacher, many years later, started doing the etymology on hip and hop and hoppers, and realized that the etymology describes exactly what we are doing and who we are. Nobody planned that out. That's God. That's Spirit. If we were a community of doctors or lawyers or architects or even politicians, then the idea that hip-hop can be defined as a trendy dance or as an intelligent movement would not apply to us. It would not mean that much. But the very fact that these terms hip and hop and culture and even hip-hopper, which we spontaneously gave to ourselves in childhood play within a so-called slang dialect, intuitively corresponding to the etymology of these words and terms, only proves once again the depth into which the hip-hop mind can go if left to its own development. In the 1970s, we did not define ourselves in this way. We did not have this knowledge. However, the fact that we can accurately identify ourselves and our specific artistic expressions, like dance, for example, within ancient English, Latin, African, German, Dutch, and French languages, and that the etymology of these words and terms matches accurately with our modern self-expression, even though we've never formally studied these words and terms to know them, says something about our divine role as hip-hoppers. We are truly the return of an ancient people with ancient skills rooted in the earliest experiences of human consciousness. All that we need to know is ourselves. We simply need to be left alone to contemplate the depths of our own consciousness. We truly have something important and forgotten to teach and remind the world. All we have to do is believe in ourselves. As hip-hoppers, we operate in a spiritual reality when we handle and manipulate hip-hop. The fact that we created ourselves points to our divinity. The fact that we spontaneously and randomly chose names and characters for ourselves that can be matched with a history and knowledge that we have not studied proves that we, as a community, are not just singing, rapping, and dancing. There seems to be more to hip-hop than our ability to sing and dance. We are connected to something divine and timeless. The fact that we created hip-hop first and then the explanation as to how our creation came about later proves that we are working with spiritual energy, awareness, and law. The opposite is the way of the world. The way of the world is to plan and explain your plan of action before you act or create. Spiritual law works differently. The creation is created first, and the explanation as to how it was created comes later. And usually when natural and spiritual events are later explained, they align with the mathematics and harmony of nature and the universe itself. However, this is usually discovered years later by future generations equipped with better instruments and a broader knowledge. It's funny. I didn't even know. When I drew this, when I wrote this word from the Emerald Tablets of Thoth the Atlantean, when I wrote out Zin Uru in the teacher's garage, I had no idea the depth of the meaning of it. I just thought it sounded cool. And then as I started learning about it, it was like, wow, this is just so deep. And I'll show you how deep it got, because I was calling myself Zin Uru, and I don't know, a few months later, a teacher's telling me, like, yo, Zin, check it out. Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech outlines the promised land. Hip-hop is the promised land. And I was like, word, I believe it. That's dope. That's incredible. And seeing that, the movement, and this is a whole other lesson. You can look it up in the Promised Land in the Gospel of Hip Hop if you don't know this lesson. But basically the lesson is, when we read the I Have a Dream speech, he literally gives the movement of hip hop from the East Coast, from New York, from the mountains of Vermont to New York, and to the then to Pennsylvania, and then from Pennsylvania to the Rockies, which overlook California, and into California. This is the move from New York to Philly to California, then to the South. He goes to the South. That's literally the movement of hip-hop culture. That's how it moved in real time. We didn't know that while it was happening. We just knew it when we discovered it later in the words of the Promised Land. I was just like, wow, I believe it. I see it. It's very clear to me. Teacher, you're right. Hip-hop is the Promised Land. Going about my business for a couple years, I've been like, yo, I need to do the etymology on what Zin and Uru means. And a lot. I could write a whole book on Zin Uru, at least a good chapter in it. But I found this amazing. We're going around calling ourselves, saying hip-hop is the Promised Land. I heard in my mind Moses never made it to the Promised Land the night that I decided to cut my dreadlocks off and call myself Zin Uru. I heard that in my head. Moses never made it to the Promised Land. And so I decided, I got to get out of the wilderness, and I'm going to cut my hair. And I saw the word Zin Uru I had written out, and I said, I'm going to call myself Zin Uru. This is before I even knew this, okay? Doing the etymology of the word Zin and Uru, I discovered that before the Israelites entered into the Promised Land, before they crossed the River Jordan, they were in the wilderness of Zin, Z-I-N. Oh, my mind was blown. My mind was blown. I was like, yo, you mean before they got to the Promised Land, they were in the wilderness of Zin, Z-I-N? Oh no, but God didn't stop there. The magic and the miracle didn't stop there. The divine intelligence and hip hop of the universe didn't stop there. No, I started doing the research on Uru. And then there's no J's in Hebrew. And I came across an English spelling of Jerusalem, Uru, U-R-U, meaning city dash Salim, S-A-L-I-M, which means peace. Jerusalem means the city of peace. Uru Salim means the city of peace. Oh, we were talking about hip-hop city in the Promised Land, crossing from the wilderness of Zin into the Promised Land and establishing Jerusalem, the city of peace. I could not have made that up. I didn't know that. It was just a dope name. I wanted to call myself Zin Uru. I just love the sound of it. And I was like, yo, that's my name. And we're the return of an ancient people, and I'm studying. This book wasn't written then. This wasn't written then. We didn't have these words in writing that said hip-hop is the return of an ancient people. It was part of the philosophy. But yo, Zin Uru, the return of an ancient people from Thoth the Atlantean, Thoth is the original. Thoth is the first. Okay? Like everyone came after that. Everything came after. All gods came after that. You talk about the original. We are the return of an original people. I know I am. I know I'm ancient. Can't tell me nothing, because the miracle, I just witnessed the miracle of intelligent movement happening without even my knowledge. I'm just saying I am hip-hop. I turned that I am hip-hop on inside of me, and all of a sudden the intelligent movement of the universe itself is moving through me. And things are happening that I don't even know are the significance of them happening while they're happening, like taking the name. I didn't realize the significance of it. Oh, wow, but I mean, it's expanded. That's just one of the definitions of it. Well, a funny one was I said, I hit like Thor's hammer. Another one I said, in a spiritual war, I cracked the thunder of Thor. And I always liked Thor, my favorite comic book character growing up. I just thought Thor was great. Not as much of a, I like the movie version. He's all right, but like the comic version is way doper than they as much as I appreciate that character, like they didn't get Thor right in the movies. When you read the old comic books, like man, he's like a goofball kind of dummy in the movie. Now Thor is dope and deep and caring and like just a deep individual. Thor was deep in the comic books, especially when Walter Simonson was writing them. But anyways, I use Thor as an example a lot in rhymes, using those as rhymes. And then Uru, U-R-U, is what Thor's hammer is made out of, just for a little fun thing that was just later popped up, I could go on and on about these things happening in life. Doing an album. Arcturus is a star, the star Arcturus. And Uru is in Arcturus, so I always just was joking around, saying I'm Arcturian. I come from Arcturus because the Uru's in Arcturus, right? And so I start writing an album. I see the word sword from the stone, and I saw word from the tone. I thought, well, that's pretty profound, word from the tone. And so I wrote Excalibur. I'll put you can see it up here, one of the, I'm picking up Excalibur, I'm pulling it out of the stone, I'm pulling the sword from the stone, but the sword is a microphone. I'm pulling the microphone from the stone, but it's really pulling the word from the tone. Like tone is, but the word is Zin Uru, the tone is Zin Uru, but the word is Zin Uru, Zin Uru, so we're bringing the word from the tone. And I was like, yo, that's dope. And so while we're doing the research, my partner at the time, she's doing my family history and finds out that I descend from Cornwall, that my ancestors were from Cornwall. And it just happened to be that Cornwall is where the legend of Avalon is from. The King Arthur legend, my ancestors were living that legend. They are the legend. My ancestors, King Arthur, right? I was like, man, this is profound. This is so profound. And then while I'm studying King Arthur is named after Arcturus. Arthur is Arcturus, which is the name for the star Arcturus. King Arthur is named after the star Arcturus. And I'm running around saying I'm from Arcturus. I can't make this up. I wish I could. Sometimes I'd be like, man, that's a smart thing. I see these things, I'm going to call myself this. No, I just call myself a cool name, start doing some things, and those things align with it. So be careful what you call yourself, but be inspired. I was just inspired to be the name. The intelligent movement of hip-hop was already moving through me, already turned on, already awoken. I said, oh, that name sounds dope. Little did I know. And I'm still learning about it. It's still revealing itself to me. What a miracle. What a miracle you are, my nobility. Who are you really? What are you really capable of? Don't stop for nobody or nothing. I don't care if Armageddon comes. I ain't stopping nothing. I will be hip-hop through Armageddon. Hip-hop, we survive Armageddon. We move right through the downfall of the colonizer as we build. And the thing is, a miracle about it is the more of us that awaken to us, and we don't have to do no military conquest. We don't got to fire a shot. We ain't got to do none of that. No, we just be ourselves. And ourselves will vibrate the opposition. Being ourselves, our true free selves, our hip-hop selves, will vibrate the opposition out of existence. They can't compete with the frequency. We're of a higher frequency. I walk around town like, man, I just, knowing when I walk into a building or a store, demons flee. And if they don't, my energy and light transmutes demons back into the light. They cease being demons. It just happens, my nobility. Be that sound, be that vibrating force. Don't let nobody, don't let yourself especially. That's what we'll close on. Don't stop yourself, because remember, I said once you turn it on, the only thing or any force in the entire universe
that can turn it off is you. Don't turn off your light. Don't turn off your sound. Don't turn it down. Don't turn off your hip hop. Don't turn off your intelligent awareness. Don't turn it off just because you feel a certain way or because you're having doubts. No, keep it on. When you have those doubts, motivate yourself past those doubts. When you have fears, motivate yourself past those fears. That pressure of the doubt and the fears will make you a stronger man or a stronger woman, stronger in your resolve. Will make you a better hip-hopper. No human being worth their salt in life doesn't go through not only a struggle, but a substantial struggle. Bruce Lee went through substantial struggles in life. Just breaking into Hollywood as a Chinese man and being made fun of. And watch the movie Dragon, the Bruce Lee story, produced by his wife Linda and his daughter. Her name slips me. Shannon. His wife Linda and his daughter Shannon Lee carry on his legacy. Great movie. With Jason Scott Lee as Bruce Lee does a great job, even though there's no relation. It's just interesting. But great movie. Watch the struggles that he went through.
Wow, that is so wild. It's like there's so much resistance to getting this message from the minister out this week. But hip hop, you don't stop. We don't stop for nothing. Like the first time ever, in 58 of these, the battery just went out, just completely died. Didn't even give me a blink or a warning, just died, right? And so I got it plugged in over there, but it's not getting any juice. So I don't know if I need a new battery, if I burnt that one out, or what's going on. But hip hop, you don't stop. And I was just saying, go see the movie Bruce Lee, or watch the movie Dragon, the Bruce Lee story, okay? Watch Dragon, the Bruce Lee story. But just keep in mind that every great person through history went through a struggle and they did not stop. And if we didn't have those men and women who made those sacrifices, we wouldn't even be here today. So use that as motivation and encouragement to not stop. You ain't got to stop for nobody or nothing. And nobody can turn it off except for you. And you won't turn it off because you understand what it is, my nobility. And I just want to say, I grabbed my iPhone. I was like, you know what? This is a great in time. I teach in real time. That's what we do at the Temple of Hip Hop. We're teaching in real time. And in this real time, I did not stop. I was like, oh, wow, that camera went out. But as soon as I sat down watching it charge, I was like, I'm going to lose my energy. I'm going to lose the message. I'm going to lose the importance of keeping the energy going. Because why? We don't stop. And even though this is a little bit different of an outro, I said everything that needed to be said in this week's message from the minister. I could have closed it there, but I wanted to grab this iPhone and say, my nobility, you are so important. We all need you. If you are a hip hopper, we need you to learn and know your purpose and live in it. Like the earth is going through some wild changes right now. The world is falling apart right now. And what's going to be left is those of us who heard the voice of God, had faith in the voice of God, and did not stop for nobody or nothing. We stuck to our guns. We stuck to our beliefs. We stuck to our king and the words of our king. We believed in our God, and we hipped to our hop. And know this in the future generations. Nothing can stop you except yourself. And once you know yourself, you will never stop yourself. You will grow and grow and grow into the tree of life, into the hip hopper you were born and destined to be. And there it is, my nobility. Peace and much love to you as you go forward empowered this week. Hey!